Imagine a world-famous star, someone admired by millions, quietly blending into everyday life, watching, unnoticed, just to see how we treat each other. What would they discover? Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and be sure to hit subscribe for more inspiring stories like this. Welcome to Motivation for Success, where we uncover powerful moments of kindness, empathy, and understanding. Join us as we explore real-life stories that challenge the way we see the world, and inspire us to do better. Now, let's dive into today's incredible story. It was a serene Sunday morning, the sort that made the world feel like it had briefly slowed down. The sun had only been up for a few hours, its warmth illuminating the streets of downtown Metroville in gentle, golden tones. The clock in Keanu Reeves' car read 9:06 a.m. as he peered into the rearview mirror, making a tiny adjustment to the brim of his faded baseball cap. In that glass reflection, he did not see the Hollywood superstar known for his infectious grin and larger-than-life roles. Instead, he saw a man dressed in a simple gray hoodie, a pair of well-worn jeans, and athletic shoes that could blend in just about anywhere. For a moment, he hesitated, considering the magnitude of what he was about to do. Keanu Reeves had been a household name for years. His face had graced magazine covers, and his on-screen heroics had earned him countless fans across the globe. Yet somewhere along his journey, he began hearing persistent whispers, real-life stories of discrimination, small acts of prejudice, and a pervasive indifference that existed far from the glitz of red carpets. People would share incidents of being belittled at stores or ignored by service staff, simply because they didn't dress or look a certain way. Over time, these troubling narratives weighed heavily on him, prompting a bold decision. He would go out into the world as an ordinary man, free of the protective bubble fame had built around him. This wasn't a spontaneous idea. It was something he'd been planning for weeks, choosing the right disguise, picking a location that was neither too upscale nor too rundown, and mentally preparing for potential surprises. Keanu wanted unfiltered truths. If prejudice was as rampant as the stories suggested, he needed to see it with his own eyes. Fame had shielded him long enough, now, he was ready to face whatever reality lay beyond his notoriety. As Keanu navigated the quiet streets, he couldn't help recalling memories from his early career. Before the glitter of Hollywood, he had been a struggling actor living in a cramped apartment, trying to make ends meet with part-time jobs in coffee shops and retail stores. It wasn't glamorous, but it had felt genuine. Back then, he had experienced warm gestures from strangers, but also the sting of dismissal from those who sized him up and decided he wasn't worth their time. Now, having spent years enjoying VIP treatment, private dressing rooms, and personal shoppers, he longed to reconnect with that authenticity, good or bad. Eventually, he pulled into a large parking lot in downtown Metroville. It was flanked by a handful of budget-friendly chain stores, a quaint cafe, and several small businesses. Keanu had chosen a store that advertised affordable prices on electronics, home goods, and clothing, just the kind of place where he hoped to see a wide cross-section of ordinary lives. He steered toward a parking spot at the far end of the lot, away from prying eyes, and took one more deep, steadying breath. If he were recognized, it might compromise the experiment, so he tucked his hair beneath his cap, pulled his hoodie's drawstring a bit tighter, and stepped out into the morning air. The store had a large, rectangular sign displaying its name in bold letters. Its big glass windows showed a glimpse of bustling activity inside, families scanning shelves for deals, employees in matching uniforms rearranging merchandise, and the occasional shopper rushing toward the exit with full carts. There was a sense of controlled chaos, typical of any popular retail store on a weekend morning. As he approached the automatic doors, they slid open with a whoosh, letting out a gust of cold, air-conditioned air. A momentary wave of nostalgia hit Keanu. He remembered how, years ago, stepping into a store like this meant careful budgeting, hesitating over the cost of everyday items because money was scarce. That memory made him smile wryly. Today, wealth was no longer his concern, but ironically, He wanted to see the world through the eyes of someone for whom every purchase might still be a stretch. He entered, merging seamlessly with the flow of customers. Immediately, his senses were overwhelmed by a mashup of top 40 music trickling from overhead speakers, the intermittent beep of cash registers, the scent of fresh popcorn from a vendor near the entrance, and scattered voices conversing in different languages. He noted the crispness of the air conditioning against his face, a stark contrast to the warmth outside. At that very moment, no one spared him a second glance. To them, he was just another face in the weekend crowd. Keanu made his way toward the electronics section, located along the far left aisle. He passed rows of smartphones, televisions, gaming consoles, and accessories. Several display stands boasted new arrivals, their neon signs announcing sale prices. A lanky store employee, probably in his early 20s, was leaning against one of these displays, absorbed in whatever was on his phone screen. Keanu had deliberately chosen to start here, recalling numerous consumer complaints that electronics staff often seemed aloof or unhelpful. He paused in front of a selection of wireless headphones, picking up a box to read its specifications. He waited a few moments, hoping for the employee to approach and ask if he needed help, but the young man appeared oblivious to everything around him. Finally, Keanu cleared his throat and asked quietly, "Excuse me, do you know if these are good for outdoor use?" He kept his tone casual, ensuring no trace of the commanding confidence that might give away his celebrity background. The employee glanced up with half-lidded eyes, shrugged, and mumbled, "I don't know. Maybe." Without breaking stride in his phone scrolling, he returned his gaze to the screen. Keanu felt a twinge of disappointment, but he resisted the urge to reveal any frustration. Instead, he tried a second question. "Is there a way to check if they're weather-resistant?" he asked politely. "I'll be using them for jogging, so I just want to be sure." With an exaggerated sigh, the employee took the box, flipped it over, and lazily scanned the text. "Yeah, says it's weather-resistant," he muttered, handing it back. He offered no further guidance or information, as if this transaction was a favor he was forced to perform. Curious how far this indifference might go, Keanu pressed once more. "Are they compatible with all phone models, or do I need a specific app?" The young man rolled his eyes. "It's on the box," he replied curtly. "You can read the details yourself." With that, he shifted his attention back to his phone, effectively ending the conversation. A flush of annoyance rose in Keanu. He'd portrayed countless heroic characters battling adversity in fictional worlds, but the disrespect stinging him now felt all too real. For years, store staff had practically tripped over themselves to offer him the best service imaginable because of who he was. But in this moment, wearing simple clothes and presenting as an ordinary customer, he experienced the same dismissive treatment countless people described. He gently placed the box back on the shelf, letting the employee's indifference linger in his mind as a somber proof of everyday prejudice, or, at the very least, everyday apathy. Continuing down the aisle, Keanu tried to keep his spirits balanced. One individual's bad attitude might not necessarily represent the entire store. After all, there could be myriad explanations. Perhaps the employee was having a bad day, was exhausted from a long shift, or was new and lacked proper training. Yet, something about the dismissive tone felt more entrenched, as though the young man's worldview and approach to customers were shaped by a habitual lack of empathy. These thoughts led Keanu to recall times on set when he'd see crew members or junior staff being ignored or belittled by other celebrities. He'd always made it a point to greet everyone he passed on a movie set, from the camera operators to the craft service workers. To him, respect was a non-negotiable. It fascinated him how quickly courtesy could vanish in everyday life, as if basic kindness required too much effort. Trying to shake off the encounter, Keanu headed toward the clothing section. Rows of brightly colored t-shirts and discounted jeans stretched before him. Overhead signs proclaimed clearance sale, 50% off and buy one, get one free. There were a few customers flipping through racks, holding items up to the light to examine their quality, and rummaging around for proper sizes. A cheerful young woman with a neat ponytail caught Keanu's eye from behind a counter stacked with folded sweaters. She looked up as he approached, flashing a friendly grin that immediately warmed the energy in the space. "Good morning," she said brightly, stepping out from behind the counter. "Can I help you find a certain size or style?" Her genuine enthusiasm was a breath of fresh air. "I'm just browsing for now, but thank you," Keanu replied. She nodded, undeterred. "Great. Well, if you have questions, just let me know. I'll be right here." She then returned to organizing a stack of shirts, methodically folding and ensuring they were properly arranged. Keanu silently observed how she interacted with other customers, including an elderly gentleman who was having trouble reading the labels on a pack of socks. She left her station without hesitation, approached him with a kind smile, and read off the sizing information in a patient, gentle voice. This scene stood in stark contrast to his earlier encounter, reaffirming his hope that compassion wasn't entirely lost. Moving deeper into the clothing area, Keanu overheard hushed voices. Two employees were sorting a cart of returned items when they noticed him lingering nearby. One, a middle-aged man with a name tag that read Don, nudged the other, a younger associate named Lee. "Don, hey, check out that guy. Think he's here to buy anything or just looking around?" Lee, probably just browsing. People in hoodies usually don't drop big bucks on clothes. Keanu felt his jaw tighten slightly. It wasn't the most vicious statement in the world, but it revealed a subtle prejudice, that a person's attire could single-handedly communicate how much they could or would spend. It sounded like the same type of stereotyping that often led to poor customer service or outright discrimination. He took a few steps back, pretending to look at a rack of jeans, hoping to catch more of their conversation without appearing obvious. "Don, yeah, well, if he needs help, let him ask. No point hovering if he's not gonna buy." Lee chuckled. "I can't wait for my break," he said, swiftly changing the topic. "I'm starving." From these few lines, Keanu gleaned an unsettling truth: it wasn't merely about being busy or having a personal issue. There was a normalized culture, at least among some staff, of judging a potential customer's worth, or the effort they deserved, based on appearance. Such subtle biases rarely caused an outright scene but did erode the dignity of those on the receiving end. Pausing in front of a mirror that displayed a reflection of a random shopper, Keanu momentarily saw his younger self. In his early days, he had entered stores hesitant to ask for help because he feared being judged for not having enough money. Sometimes, the people behind the counters confirmed those fears, offering minimal assistance or outright ignoring him. Other times, a friendly clerk would change his whole day by answering questions kindly, treating him as though he mattered. It reminded him why he was here, disguised as a no-name visitor, to personally witness how the smallest interactions could shift someone's perspective. He considered how easily negative assumptions could alienate people who might be in genuine need or might actually be ready to buy something significant. If you treat someone like a potential nuisance, they'll remember that, and it might sour their view of society as a whole. Underscore 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 underscore. 9. Weighing emotions and observations. As Keanu wandered, he took in even more details. The store had a layout designed to lead shoppers through various sections, from electronics on one side to home goods on the opposite end, with a central row lined with cosmetics, accessories, and seasonal items. Promotional displays extolled the virtues of discount kitchen appliances, plush towels, and decorative throw pillows. Shoppers weaved in and out, some quickly grabbing items and heading for the checkout, others dawdling as they deliberated over color choices and price tags. He saw employees who were equally diverse, some engaged wholeheartedly with customers, while others demonstrated the same kind of apathy he'd encountered earlier. A pregnant woman asked for assistance lifting a large box, and an employee rushed over to help, not just with that box but also with escorting her cart to a more navigable lane. In another corner, he spotted an older man struggling to find a specific battery for his power drill, but two nearby staff members remained deep in conversation, ignoring his visible confusion. The differences were stark. Every act of kindness shone like a beacon in the sea of disinterest. Every subtle slight left a bruise on the collective conscience. Eventually, Keanu decided to observe how staff might react if he appeared lost. He made his way to a section displaying random home improvement tools and began scrutinizing the labels as though he didn't know which product to pick. With a slight furrow of his brow, he purposely looked around, hoping someone would notice and step in. For a few minutes, no one approached. Shoppers squeezed by, too preoccupied with their own tasks to pay him any heed. Finally, a young sales associate with a bright orange lanyard around her neck paused. "Do you need help finding something?" she asked, her voice gentle but laced with professional courtesy. Keanu felt relief and gratitude. "I'm not sure what size wrench I need for a small plumbing fix," he improvised, pointing to two nearly identical options. "These both look right, but I really have no idea." She carefully examined the labels and asked him a few clarifying questions, advising him on the correct size. "I've had to do a few minor home repairs myself," she said, a friendly glint in her eye. "This one's more versatile if you're not entirely sure of the measurements." He thanked her, noting how it took her just a few extra moments to provide genuine help. Then, as soon as she arrived, she departed, off to help another customer who also appeared stumped. This brief exchange, though small, reaffirmed his faith in the capacity for kindness that still existed in the everyday hustle. As he continued toward the checkout lanes, Keanu passed another group of employees chatting in hushed tones near the corner of an aisle stocked with cleaning supplies. While their words were quiet, the store's acoustics allowed snatches of their conversation to drift over to him. "Employee 1, that guy in the hoodie's been wandering around for a while now. I saw him in electronics, clothes, and now tools. Bet he can't afford half the stuff he's been looking at. Employee 2, we'll probably have to keep an eye on him. You never know." Their insinuation was clear. Keanu was suspected of either wasting their time or, worse, potentially planning something illegal, like shoplifting, purely based on his casual appearance and meandering. He felt a flicker of anger. They had no idea who he was or why he was browsing. It stung to realize how quickly people could jump to conclusions. Yet he refused to let that anger consume him. These momentary glimpses of bias were exactly why he'd come. He needed first-hand insight into the daily realities of ordinary people who felt dismissed, judged, and sometimes even unwelcome in public spaces. At last, Keanu reached the checkout lanes, although he still hadn't bought anything. He settled on a small, inexpensive item, a pack of batteries, just to engage in a transaction. Even with all he had witnessed, he still wanted to see how the final point of service would treat him. His cashier was a middle-aged woman with a name tag reading Maria. She had gently curled hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. As Keanu placed his single item on the conveyor belt, Maria greeted him warmly. "Good morning, sir. Did you find everything you were looking for today?" Her sincerity touched him immediately. "Not exactly," he admitted with a soft shrug. "But this is all I need for now." Maria scanned the batteries and carefully placed them in a small plastic bag. "Well, if you need any assistance in the future, don't hesitate to ask us," she offered, her voice filled with genuine concern. "We appreciate your shopping with us." He handed her a small bill. "Thank you for being so pleasant," he said quietly, pulling the bag toward him. She blinked, a bit surprised by his earnest gratitude. "Oh," she replied. "I'm just doing my job, but thank you. Sometimes people can have a rough day, and maybe that's why they forget to smile. But we're all just trying to get through the day, aren't we?" Keanu nodded, absorbing the simple yet profound truth of her words. It was a grounding thought, that everyone carried invisible burdens, and a small act of kindness could bring a hint of relief. Maria handed him his change, wishing him a wonderful day. He left the line with a faint smile on his face, aware that this short interaction had ended his store journey on a gentle, positive note. Stepping back into the sunlight, Keanu walked across the parking lot, his single shopping bag swaying at his side. He paused next to his car, looking back at the store's facade. The morning had offered him a whirlwind of human behaviors: apathy, stereotyping, warmth, understanding, and everything in between. It struck him how the shape of an experience could drastically change based on the attitudes of a few individuals. He recalled the employees who had gone out of their way to help, like the young woman in the clothing section and the one who helped him choose the right wrench. He remembered Maria's genuine warmth at the register. Conversely, he couldn't forget the dismissive staff member in electronics or the employees who whispered judgments as he shopped. This spectrum of responses reflected the broader human condition: empathy and bias, compassion and indifference, all woven into the fabric of daily life. Once inside his car, Keanu removed his cap and gently rubbed his temples. He felt a weight of new understanding, an awareness that for many people, small slights and daily judgments were a routine part of life. Though Keanu Reeves the celebrity might never be treated so dismissively in a store, the ordinary Keanu Reeves had just tasted the sting of feeling disregarded. And this was only a few hours of his morning. Countless people, across countless places, endure such treatment regularly, often worse. He turned the key, and his engine sprang to life. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he considered the next steps. He had always believed in the power of storytelling, films, interviews, philanthropic events, to highlight injustice and inspire kindness. This real-life experience bolstered that conviction. Change begins with awareness, he thought. And awareness leads to conversations, which can lead to action. He felt a renewed resolve to incorporate these lessons into his work, whether through roles that expose societal biases or personal initiatives designed to celebrate everyday heroes like Maria. During the drive home, Keanu found his mind racing through hypothetical scenarios. What if he had revealed his identity to the dismissive electronics staffer? Would that young man have instantly changed his approach, flooding him with attention and apologies? Would the employees who whispered doubts have backpedaled, professing ignorance and feigned politeness? The irony wasn't lost on him. There were certainly downsides to fame: lack of privacy, constant public scrutiny, but it usually offered a safety net against everyday disrespect. Knowing how it felt to be brushed aside reconnected him to the struggles of countless individuals. It motivated him to speak out, not to shame the indifferent employees but to emphasize how small changes in attitude can vastly improve someone's shopping trip, work day, or entire outlook on life. That evening, sitting in his home office, Keanu scribbled notes about the day's events in a leather-bound journal. He recounted the frustration, the glimmers of hope, and the complex tapestry of human reactions. He realized that while he alone couldn't transform the entire world, he could certainly share these experiences, turn them into a narrative that would resonate with others. He thought of all the fans who watched his movies, the social media followers who valued his opinions, and the journalists who might interview him about his upcoming roles. "I can bring it up," he told himself, tapping his pen against the page. "I can talk about what it means to be on the receiving end of judgment and how simple acts of kindness can offset the weight of negativity." Ultimately, Keanu understood that the real lesson of the day was about empathy. The more we empathize with one another, the more we break down the walls of judgment. By consciously choosing to acknowledge people's humanity, regardless of their appearance, perceived status, or how much they plan to spend, we inch closer to a society where everyone is treated with dignity. He recognized this mission was bigger than him, bigger than Hollywood. It was a collective effort. If enough people took the time to engage with compassion, the ripple effect could be extraordinary. After all, if a single smile from Maria had the power to lift his spirits, imagine how many hearts 1,000 Marias could brighten, day in and day out. If Keanu Reeves' Undercover experience resonates with you, let it serve as a catalyst for your own actions. Look for opportunities in your daily life to demonstrate kindness, a helping hand to someone struggling with a bulky package, a warm greeting to a cashier, or a small moment of compassion when someone looks lost. Speak up if you see someone being belittled or marginalized. Stand up for respect. Build bridges through empathy. Remember, you never truly know someone's story just by looking at them. Share this tale with friends or on social media, and spark a conversation about the subtle and overt ways we treat each other. If you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, or judged based on appearances, know that you're not alone, and that simple gestures can begin to change these patterns. In a world often shaped by quick judgments, superficial perceptions, and hasty assumptions, the antidote lies in empathy and compassion. By remembering that every person we encounter carries untold stories, we learn to extend kindness in place of suspicion, patience in place of dismissal, and consideration in place of indifference. Even a single act of thoughtfulness, whether from an electronics clerk, a clothing associate, or a friendly cashier, can create a ripple effect of warmth in someone else's life. Thank you for joining us today on Motivation for Success. If this story moved you or inspired you to look at your daily interactions differently, subscribe to our channel for more profound narratives that challenge us to grow into kinder, more understanding individuals. Together, we can cultivate a world where empathy becomes the norm and everyone's humanity is acknowledged, one small act at a time.